Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and this is Monday, March 18th. This will be our chart lesson today. I got a couple of emails. I don't know what happened to the volume on Friday's video. I apologize. There's some pretty good stuff in there, but it's too complicated to go back and redo the video. So whatever we got Friday is going to be what it is. So I apologize, but I'm not sure what happened. I'm not sure if my headphones, I've got some wireless headphones, and I believe the battery died. Normally after I get a little beep telling me the battery's low, I can still go for 10 or 15 minutes, and I heard the beep, but it was just like 30 seconds before I finished the video, and so that's the only thing I can assume is my battery died on my headphones. So, but either way, I'm not going to try to redo it. It is what it is, and I apologize, and hopefully it won't happen again. But anyway, thanks for the heads up, because I would not have probably known that we didn't have any sound if a couple of you hadn't have made me aware of it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So let's talk about the video, or let's talk about the trading today and go from there. And the first thing I want to show you is this gap. Notice this is where prices closed on Friday. And this is where they opened on today's trading, which was really yesterday, Sunday afternoon or whatever. And people get confused and they can't see this gap. But let me show you. That's what it would have looked like when the market first opened. Notice that prices closed up here and they're opening way down here. So there's a gap in there. In other words, there's no overlapping bars. Notice how all the bars are overlapping and there's no open space between them. And then suddenly we get a 36 to 54, almost a 20-point gap. That's huge. And most of the time what's going to happen is inexperienced traders are thinking, oh, the market's weak, let's go short. And so they start going short here, and guess what? It'll go down for just a little bit, then it reverses, and it spends the whole rest of the day trying to fill that gap. And you can see prices are rising. And so we're definitely in an up channel, really basically since, let's just look at that, since 2 o'clock in the morning we've been trending up. So by the time we get here today around 7 o'clock, this is an obvious up channel. And I drew this first line off those first couple of swings, and you can see we kind of overshot it right there, but mostly as prices are holding in that line. And then I just cloned it and copied it, and I drag it down, and you can see that's come into play the rest of the day. Now, we did have a small, tighter channel within this bigger channel here, but hopefully you see how I did that. And that's how I found that channel. And, of course, the first 2 times we hit it, this was a really good trade right here, easy money. And guess what? We finally break the trend line here, and now guess what? We're trying to do the retest. And we haven't quite filled that gap. I don't believe we didn't quite fill it. Yeah, you can see the gaps from 53 to 52 and a quarter, so we hadn't quite filled it, so we'll probably fill it on this retest, and then we'll see what happens from there. But the trading day is basically, well, it's only 1:15, so there's still a lot of time left in this day, but I've been through for a while. So and there was actually an entry long right here as well. I don't have it marked, but there it is. So let's back out and talk about what we saw today. I didn't really there was not really a good setup until right here when we had this failed second entry short right here. You had to go long on that trap. We were looking for reasons to get long down here anyway. Notice that we got a double bottom, and then we just retested it again. You really could have gone long above that first one because there is a little trap. You see that double bottom right there. Let me make it a little bigger. Notice if your line was right there, and that's where I had my line. And notice it ticked lower, so you could have gone long right there, but if you didn't go long there, and let me just circle that whole area right there. And because you could have gone long in either spot, and of course you keep your stop below the signal bar. And you can get in real tight right there, one tick, and notice it came back and tested it again, but it never broke below that signal bar. So I normally keep my stop 2 ticks below it if I can, and still be within our 2-point stop rule. That's the maximum we ever want to take. But you always want to have your stop below the signal bar. Just because we talk about 2 points doesn't mean you want to do 2 points every single time. You hope you don't ever take a 2-point stop, but the rule is you've got to be able to enter the trade following putting your stop below the signal bar and to still be within 2 points. So that's the actual. So keep that in mind. So if you entered right here or right here, you got a little better entry on the first entry, and that's generally what happens. And really, there's a second entry here. Notice that we broke above right there. We pulled back, and then we broke above again right here. So that's the second entry long right there after the little break lower. But it just didn't quite take off. People were probably looking for it to come back to the or to the trend line here. But when we made that failed second entry short right there, then you got a trap, and everybody knows you got to go long above that, and you see it go. And where do we go? We go right to the upper side of what's looking like a channel here now. But remember, we traded up into this, so the bias is up, and the bias always takes precedence. So you got to be a lot more careful going short up here. And in fact, there's just a nice another trap right here. We tried to go lower once, then twice, and then we go long right there. It pulled back again, and really you could have gone long here. I didn't like this setup as much. I actually went long here, and as long as you kept your stop below that signal bar, everything was okay. If you decided to go long right there, it wasn't a bad entry. It's just not a real good setup bar, so to speak. It is a second entry long because we got a new low here. So, and you can see it would have worked out, and you could have ridden this thing higher. The good thing about this entry, really on both of them, because you weren't able to scalp out right here. I don't think we were able to scalp out right there. 42.50. And you see it was it looked like it was going to be a 4-tick failure. So no, you wouldn't have scalped out unless you could get in here in a better entry, and you really couldn't because this gapped open and went higher. So it might have even been hard for you to catch that one, if you're trying to enter with a stop, because it did tick up. And so odds are you probably didn't even get filled on that one. I was in down here, and I did not add on right here. So I didn't take this trade, but it's a good setup because it's a trap right there. And, you want to take advantage of those traps, and you see what happened. It did pull back, and then it took off again. And you could have entered again here. Same thing. I'm still riding my runner, so I didn't enter again here. But then we finally get a little pullback. And, of course, once you started to see this kind of angle right here in prices, that's when you should have had your trend channel line drawn a line there to see what's happening. And notice what happened. Every time we came back to that line, prices went higher. And so there's a breakout pullback long here, but I really didn't like that one because it's not a real good setup bar. We're really still far away from the EMA, and you're better off to wait for prices to pull back, because as soon as you enter in here, this is what happens. It pulls back. But there's your perfect reversal bar right off that trend, that minor trend channel that's in there within the bigger channel. You go long right there, and again, it gapped open again. So what you got to think about if that happens is drop a limit order in there and hope it pulls back and get you. And it did. It does, because I know I entered that way. I dropped a limit order there, and it pulled back and filled my limit order, and then it went higher. And, unfortunately, you don't get any runners on this one. They come back and get them. And so, but guess what? You get another chance to enter here. Look at that reversal bar again, right off the line. It's a failed break below. Out of this little trading, all these little, what I call congestion, which is just a small trading range. Look at that reversal bar. You go long right there. Again, all you get is a scalp, and then it pulls back. And there's not really another good setup until right here. This is a second entry long. There's one leg back. It ticks higher, pulls back for the second leg. Right off of that trend, little temporary channel, you go long again right there, and your stop goes below that signal bar. Now, this was another 4-tick failure right here. I actually got my limit order filled. It bumped it so many times that I got filled there. There's no guarantee that you'll get filled like that. It just depends on where you're at in the queue. But a lot of times when you enter with using the strategy, as soon as your order's triggered, your exit order goes in, and it's a lot quicker than doing it manually. And I think it's worth using it, because a lot of times, And I actually got my limit order filled there, even though it was a 4-tick failure. It pulled back, but guess what? As long as your stop was below here, um, it never got hit, and it went higher again. Then you got a chance to get in off a bounce off both this bigger trend channel line, and you may not have had that line. I know it takes a little experience to find that the way I do it sometimes, but you should have at least had this right here, the support area. So it's a, it's a failed, it's 2 times trying to go lower after this little double bottom right here. So, or you could just say it's a double bottom with a retest, but a chance to get long again right there, right off of trend line, if not right off of support. But in this case, both, and that's the first time we really got below the EMA all this way up, so the odds are we're probably still going to go higher. And great chance to get long right there again. And as long and your stop again goes below the signal bar right here. And this was a nice trade. This trade made me a lot of money right here because runners were safe, and you ride them all the way up. And I looked to exit when we broke out of this. Actually, I exited before we broke out of this right up here near the top. Once we started going into I really wanted to exit here, but I'm thinking, hey, we're not quite to the channel. So I held on, and I got a little nervous when we kept making these. So I went ahead and exited. So I got out within a point at least, probably 3 ticks, something like that at the top. And you see here we are, we're doing the retest right now. This was the first break of the trend channel. You got a nice, you had all these matching lows. It's a failed break. Let me just move the line up here to make it easy to see because some of you won't be able to see it probably. But you see we had all those matching lows. A failed break lower, it's a reversal bar. It's a second entry long, 1 leg back, pull back, second leg. Notice there's your first entry. You come down, there's your second entry. When we broke above that, that's your signal bar right there. You go long right there. And guess what? This one, if you didn't, if you entered 1 tick above it, you didn't quite get out. So what you had to do, when we made this second entry long right here, and it starts to turn down, you got to, especially when you got that bar right there and then that bar, you're probably better off just to exit and take what it'll get you, because it should have, we should have expected it to go on up like it's doing right here. And when it didn't do that, that meant we weren't through correcting. But guess what? We haven't come back. Let me show you this. When you find those highs across there, you can see that we had those highs across there, and we hadn't come back to test that. Now we tested it twice, and then guess what? We're off to the races to do the retest. And so that's what they're trying to do a lot of times when you get these corrections in the break of the trend line, is they're trying to come back to test these breakout areas. And that's where I originally had that line right across those closes. And look at there, we touched it to the tick, reversed. Another place to go long right there. And it was really probably tempting. You probably could have gone long right here. Could you have scalped out? I don't know. 48.50. That would have been a 4-tick failure. And you see they broke prices below there, and all that was a stop run and a retest, and then boom, off it goes. But this was a great setup right here. And this one wasn't too bad. And that's why I like to keep my stop 2 ticks. That's the reason you always hear me say 2 ticks, because I can't tell you the number of times you'll see it tick 1 tick lower and hit everybody's stop and then reverse. And it just stops all those longs out 1 tick ahead of time. And so they're famous for doing that. And now we're about to make the new high on the retest, and my guess is we'll fill that gap probably too. And that was pretty much it for today. Again, people always ask me, what about the shorts? There were shorts all the way up through here, but look at the trend. It's up all the way. You don't want to be shorting because you just get hung up in a bad trade and watch it go higher, and it's not worth shorting. The only trade I saw today that even I would have considered shorting was this one right here. I actually I considered going short right here on a limit order, but it never got filled until it came back, and then it's too late because we're still working higher. But there was a short right here possibly, but I was pretty much done trading and didn't want to enter right there. Once you've got your profit for the day and actually surpassed it today, so why do I want to risk a short right here, knowing that we haven't broken the main trend channel yet of what I was looking at as the main channel? And I'll back out where you can see that again. And you can clearly see that channel working up through there. We finally get the break, and now we're working on a retest. And so we've really, that's one leg up and a little bit of correction, and I think we probably need more correction than that, probably to consider that anything less than one leg. But we'll see how that works out. And we'll probably finish filling the gap over here. But that's what I saw today, and this is about as easy a day as it gets. But I know what happens is people fight this all the way up. They're shorting every time it makes a new high, thinking it's going to roll over, it's going to roll over. But look at that EMA, how straight up that is, and what's happening every time prices pull back to it for the most part. Don't fight with that. Just go long every time, even though it's not going very fast and the moves are kind of small. It's a strong trend. That's a strong trend. And let me show you this. What you should have been looking for a target. And if you draw your line right there, there's your first leg. Really, it started from, probably could say it started from right there. And you drag this over, and so your target's right here, and look where we made it to. I mean, that was what I was looking for my target. And you can see we came within, basically the closes met the target almost, and we went maybe one or two ticks higher, and it trapped a few people, and then it sold off. So that's exactly, I mean, you know, that's why I'm always telling you, try to find your target based on these measured moves, and that's leg one, and there's leg two, and you got a perfect measured leg. Then you get the break of the trend line, and now we're trying to do a retest. So fairly easy day today, a standard trading day with a good trend. And no reason to be shorting this all the way up at all. You might have taken a short right there. Nothing wrong with that one. I didn't mark it because this has been a pretty good trend. But when you know, basically when I got here at 7 o'clock, we were in a trading range. You know, even though this is a trend, but the bias is up. So you know, you're better off to look for a long down here than a short up here, even though it would have worked. And actually, I should have drawn that in green. If you wanted to take that trade, it was a good trade. So if you took that, nothing wrong with it, because I got a good signal bar, a good setup bar there too, a good negative bar. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. And mark it as a good trade. I really probably should mark it in green, but if you took that, nothing wrong with it, because it's obvious this is a trading range. You get a failed break lower, and we can't even break lower over here, because there was the lows. You see we couldn't even get back down there, but I usually use those closes, and we ticked below it twice, trapped everybody, and then off it went to the upside. And so really good trading day. Hopefully you had a good trading day. If you didn't, this is about as good a standard trend following the rules as you're going to get. So you got to learn to spot this stuff if you didn't do so well today. And the main thing, if you didn't do well today, my guess is you were counter trend trading all the way up. But find your channels, find your trend lines, find your support areas. You know, when you're going up, you're looking for reasons to go long. So you're looking for support areas, and you're looking for bounces off the trend line or the EMA or whatever. And, you know, if you get caught like right here and it only gets 4 ticks or whatever and starts backing up, you know, especially if it just kind of starts making dojis like that right there, that's a signal to get out. Especially when it ticked 1 tick higher, that's a failed second entry long coming off this low. That's a trap, and you can see they trapped everybody. They ran the stops and trapped them the other way, and now look at it go. We got a new high now, and I believe we've just about filled that gap. Look at there, we need a couple more ticks. We'll probably fill that any minute. Wouldn't surprise me if they didn't pull it back one more time before we go and fill that gap, but I'm thinking that gap will be filled before this market closes today. But again, we're so far away from the EMA, it wouldn't surprise me if they don't pull it back and scare everybody out and then run it up for another leg. So, but we'll see. It also wouldn't surprise me if we don't just shoot the gap, you know, shoot on up there and fill that gap right now, because they've got a fairly bullish setup going here. So, but that's really it for today. That's 20 minutes worth. Again, like I said, a really basic trend day, and real standard stuff, real easy to spot reversals, double bottoms, traps, and so forth. So if you can't see that, keep working on it, keep practicing, you'll get better. And We'll be back and we'll do this again tomorrow, but I'm going to wrap it up for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.